Today on Straight Talk Africa, a conversation with 3 Mandela Washington Fellows. They walk us through their American internship experiences and insights. That's coming up next, right here on Straight Talk Africa. Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa. It's Wednesday, September 3rd. I am Shaka Ssali.
Well, hello, Shaka.
Hello, Mariama.
And hello to all our viewers and listeners on the continent and elsewhere. I'm Mariama Diallo, your social media reporter.
Today, you will meet 3 remarkable young African ladies who will share their internship experiences in the United States as a part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship.
Well, I met so many of the outstanding fellows during their 3-day summit, and I can tell you how impressed I was with each and every one of them. Well, coming up later in our STA inbox, we'll share some comments from our audience about the YALI program. Hope you'll stay with us.
But first, my colleague Paul Cisco spent some quality time with the fellows at their place of employment here in Washington.
My name is Fauci Abdikadir Dahir. I'm from Kenya.
I'm Nulu Naluyombya from Uganda.
I'm from Malawi.
Chippy Kinsalenga from Malawi is primarily a print journalist. She's one of the 100 or so YALI fellows still in the United States doing an internship.
How did they decide who would become an intern and stay around?
Well, we basically had to apply for it. So because the program was divided in 3 tracks: business and entrepreneurship, civic leadership, and public management. So depending on what track you were going to undertake, you also could express interest to undertake an internship as well after that.
After 6 weeks of university study across America, 500 YALI fellows from 47 African countries participated in several forums, discussions, and town hall events in Washington, D.C.
The objective was to give young Africans the opportunity to come to the United States and develop their skills as the next generation of leaders in civil society and business and government.
The highlight for Chippy was hearing from both the President and from First Lady Michelle Obama.
This is where Africa's future lies, with those women-run businesses, with those girls attending university, and with leaders like you who are making those dreams possible.
Chippy's now at the Voice of America, where she's working on a number of media projects and expanding her print skills into other media.
It has helped me to actually up my game and just help me to look at the profession from a different perspective.
She's passionate about gender issues and says she'll use her experience to promote women's literacy, leadership, development, and new media training for women. Nulu, Naluyombya, is one of 2,500 applicants from Uganda. 90 were interviewed. 19 young Ugandans received the prestigious fellowships.
What I want to do is to help other people in Uganda understand the impact of our population trend in the country, and so that we can do something about it.
She's being mentored by Karen Otiji, the Assistant Director of Grant Management for the Smithsonian Institution.
We want to see what she's going to do with all of the knowledge that she's gained, and she has a very bright future.
Also interning in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol is Fauci, a Somali. She lives in northern Kenya, where she does community and social work.
I run an organization that does environmental conservation, it does education program, it does sexual gender-based violence programs, and its primary goal is to bring an alternative economic livelihood to the pastoral group in northern Kenya.
Fauci interns at the Bread for the World Institute, a nonprofit that educates and advocates about hunger issues while providing strategies to end hunger here and abroad. 100 million children under 5 are undernourished and underweight. Worldwide, 852 million people continue to struggle with hunger every day.
We realize that the resource lies within ourselves. And if we are all working hard, then Africa would be in a better place in a very short period of time.
To underscore the growing importance of developing African leaders, President Obama changed the name from YALI to the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders. Fauci and the other fellows will soon return to the continent, extraordinarily prepared and determined to bring change and development where it is most needed. Paul Cisco, VOA News.
Because you'll go in there and start.
Thanks, Paul, for that report. Now joining us here in our Washington studios are three distinguished fellows. Nulu Naluyombya, founder and executive director of Success Chapter from Uganda. Chipililiro Kansiranga, deputy editor online of Blantyre Newspapers Limited from Malawi. And Fauci Abdulkadir, founder and executive director of Northern Organization of Social Empowerment from Kenya. Well, ladies, I have to say frankly that I am profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have the opportunity to host the three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. Later in the program, we'll give you, the audience, a chance to call and talk with our guests. The number to call is 202-619-3111. US country code is 1. Let me come to you immediately, Nuru. How has your experience been like so far?
My experience has, first of all, been exciting. Being in Washington, D.C. and working with the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. The Smithsonian is the world's largest museum, so it's inspiring to be a part of such a big institute. So right now I'm working with the Office of Sponsored Projects at the Smithsonian, and what this office does is to help different offices in the Smithsonian get funding for their projects. Mm-hmm. So what I've been learning is basically how do you look for funding, how do you write proposals for funding, how do you look for, what do funders look for? Mm-hmm. And so I've learned the process, and it's one thing I want to go back and teach fellow Ugandans. Mm-hmm. But also I've learned how to be a servant leader, because working with everyone at the Smithsonian, everyone is ready to support you. Everyone is willing to share and mentor their information. So I've learned to be able to want to share what I've learned with as many people as possible, especially the young people.
I see. Well, what about you, Chippy?
For me, it's been really overwhelming. Right from the academic institute, which I undertook at Howard University, and later on the presidential summit as well, and just getting to meet young, bright minds from 49 other African countries. I mean, that was really great. These are people that are full of life, full of energy, you know, so positive and so hopeful about the future of Africa, and just getting to meet them, to spend time with them. I think that also helped me to look at life with a more positive angle, and just to be hopeful for Africa as well. So it's been great. And then right now I'm doing my internship right here at Voice of America. Every single moment has been awesome and amazing.
You enjoy it, eh?
I am enjoying it.
Terrific.
I wish I could stay longer.
Really? Maybe that could be arranged. Who knows? Fauci, what about you? Your experiences?
My experience has been terrific. So far, so good. My host university was Tulane University, where I was on the civic leadership track. And I got the opportunity to do community service with the Preservation Resource Center, I was in the advocacy department. And here today with Bread International, I am also in the advocacy and the institute department. And I think if there is anything that is so amazing that has completely changed my mind so far, it's policy advocacy. How policy advocacy is done here, and how institutions push for policies through the government, through the private sectors, even the public, and how they convince the public that actually this policy would work for you and it would have a positive impact on you. And like back home, how policy advocacy is. So it has brought an overhaul perspective of what actually policy advocacy is.
What about something that you could put your fingers on and say, you know what, this has to be the single most important moment in my life so far during this particular fellowship and internship?
That is definitely 500 minds from 49 sub-Saharan African countries, different ideologies, different backgrounds. And amazingly, we are all doing the same thing in one way or the other, trying to solve the social deficiencies that we have back home, which is, be it health, be it leadership, be it education, and coming together and actually seeing that, you know what, the young African leaders can actually bring the change that we are all yearning for.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
you know, there's a saying, Fauzia, that wherever there is a positive, there's also likely to be a negative somewhere in the neighborhood. Any particular thing that you have missed so far?
Any particular thing, if I have missed anything, I have missed the lost time that I was not doing anything, and I realized in this fellowship I could do. For example, I never knew that policy advocacy can be done peacefully. It's just the right communication. It's just the right strategies. I never knew that. All I knew is when I want to push for any policy, I have to fight. I have to disrespect the authorities. That's one thing that was in my head.
Really?
So when I came here, I was like, it's dialogue. It's conversation. It's having a healthy conversation. You disagree, I respect you. I disagree, you respect me. So
you negotiate.
You negotiate and you talk. You don't necessarily have to fight.
You don't have to fight. Now, Nulu, you don't have to fight, of course, but surely there must be something that you miss coming from Uganda. You've been here for about 2 months now. There must be something you miss. It could be Matoke, it could be something.
It's definitely part of the things I miss home is Matoke and also missing my family. But it's a worthwhile cause that I'm here. So I'm not focusing so much on what I'm missing home. I'm focusing on how much I can learn here and take it back home, and how many networks I can make here, so that further my work, but also to help other young people who didn't get the opportunity to come here.
What about you, Chippy?
Well, obviously there are small things that you miss. Sometimes as silly things as you miss dusty roads back home.
You know,
but as Nulu rightly said, you know, just being here it takes you away from all that kind of environment, and it's been a very intensive period. It's been a very intensive program. So we really haven't had time to sit down and reflect on what am I missing home, because there's just so much to cover and just so much to get in. It's been overwhelming, a lot of information that we have been getting. And I think a lot of time we have actually spent it on thinking about how am I going to make a difference, how am I going to have to use this information for the benefit of my community and the society that I serve.
What about single most disappointing experience for you so far?
Disappointing?
Yes. I mean, you must have had dreams and expectations about coming to America.
Yeah.
Now you are here. It's not a movie. You're not in Hollywood. You are in the reality of America.
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't really call it disappointing, but the time that I spent with the other 497 fellows was great. And when those people had to leave back home and leave us here to undertake the internship, I think we felt some kind of a disconnect, you know, and saying, well, they're going back home. We wish we had spent a lot more time with them and just to engage more and just to interact more. And, you know, there are some of them that would have obviously loved to stay behind and do the internship as well. And the fact that not everyone could have a chance to actually do that, you know. Well, but overall, I think we've been able to focus on the positive issues
really?
Other than what has not worked.
Fauzia, you were first you were 500, and now you are about 100?
Yes.
What did it take for you to be part of the 100 that are staying here doing internship?
I don't know exactly the criteria that has been used, but like anybody else, we applied, and when you're doing your application, there is a part that says, do you want to do an internship here in America, yes or no? And definitely I wanted to gain more knowledge, and I wanted to see things from an international perspective. So we just applied like any other person, and I was selected to be one of the 100 interns who are here today.
How did it feel when they said, yes, you got it?
I was excited. I was really excited, and at some point I felt privileged, and I was like, you deserve, Fauzia, you deserve, and I kept consoling myself. So it was really nice, because now here I am with Bread for the World, and I think I couldn't have been in any other better institution than Bread.
Terrific. Before we pause for a short break, we would like to remind you that Straight Talk Africa is on the social networking website Facebook. Just enter the keyword Straight Talk Africa, become a fan, and connect with other friends of the Voice of America. We'll be right back with you, so please don't go away.
Ssali recently brought 500 young people from across Africa to the United States to study business, entrepreneurship, public management, and civic leadership at 20 American universities. And this year, U.S. President Barack Obama changed the name to the Mandela Washington Fellowship. To be eligible, you have to be citizens of and residents in a sub-Saharan African country, proficient in spoken and written English, and you have to be between the ages of 25 and 35 years old at the time of the application. The fellowship required 6 weeks of study at a U.S. university in one of 3 tracks: in business and entrepreneurship, public management, and civic leadership. Selected fellows are participating in additional internships in the public, private, and non-profit sectors through September.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, speaks to VOA on the Ebola crisis.
The people of the nation, the best thing that they can do is to try as best as possible to cooperate with the health authorities and to listen to and adhere to the suggestions and guidelines. We appreciate that this is something that is really awful to be going through. We're with you, we have solidarity with you, and hopefully we'll be able to end this terrible epidemic very soon.
That was Dr. Anthony Fauci, Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, speaking to VOA on the Ebola crisis.
This is Straight Talk Africa on the Voice of America. What is your opinion about today's topic? Call us at 202-619-3111. U.S. country code 1. When you call, remember the following. Ask only one question, keep your comment brief, and turn down the volume on your radio or television. Now let's return to Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you very much, Esther Gizui. Let me come back to you again. Nulu, you went through a very intensive, thorough process, and you came out a winner. What would you say if you had to advise someone who is back there in Africa, who is somebody, frankly, that is interested to walk in your footsteps to become a Mandela Washington Fellow? What is it that they need to do, they must do, in order to make it?
I think this program was about young people who are already doing different things in their communities, doing things that are impacting their communities. For example, are you a young entrepreneur who's doing business to be out of unemployment and you're also impacting fellow young people? Or are you in civic leadership to see that different issues are sorted out? So the first advice is young people should find different things to do to impact their community. They should be part of the solution. Many times as young people, we want to point fingers. We want to point the blame to someone else. So I think as young people, we need to take initiative. We need to be responsible. We need to be part of the solution. Then if you're part of the solution, when such an opportunity comes, then you're ready to apply for it. And the very good thing I like about this Mandela Washington Fellowship, you do not need to know anyone. You do not need to come from a certain family. You do not have to have a certain social status. You just need to prove yourself as a person who's worthy. You just need to show the impact of the work you do and your future plans. Because one of the things we are asked is, first of all, what are you doing? And what are you planning to do? Because after becoming a Mandela Washington Fellow, there is much that is expected from you. Like, it's not the end after becoming a Mandela Washington Fellow. That's not the end. It's actually almost the beginning of the story, because then we expect so much from you as a Mandela Washington Fellow. So it's more of, as a young person, what are you doing? Be part of the solution. Don't just stand on the sidelines and just wait to pass on the blame. After doing that, definitely you can apply and you can be one of the Mandela.
There are a lot of people, of course, who look at you, Nulu, and say, you are a success. But you have actually succeeded. Because obviously, you happen to be one of a group of people that is being characterized as Africa's best and brightest. Yes. You know, there is someone who has defined the success as not being a reward, but in fact, a consequence of one's efforts. Do you agree with that characterization?
I definitely agree with that, it comes with work, you know. No one gives it to you. But I also believe that I'm still on a journey. This is like the beginning. I feel I still have a lot of things to do and a lot of things to accomplish and a lot of things to impact my community, especially in Uganda, you know. In Uganda, we have challenges as young people is right now. We have that almost 78% of the population are young people below the age of 30, at the age of 30. Mm-hmm. So that is a challenge. So I believe one of the things we need to do as young people is be part of the solution and also know that we can impact our community. So if you ask me about success, yes, I believe I've earned something, but I also believe that I'm still on a journey. You know, I can't say, okay, I'm there. I believe this is just the beginning.
Chippy, what about you? What is your definition of success? And do you consider yourself successful?
Yes, obviously, I think they're just different thoughts to it. But as you said earlier, I think that the first thing one has to do is to be determined and work hard, and therefore success will follow. If you work hard, there is nothing more that will go wrong with that. You don't go wrong with working hard. You have to be determined. You have to be persistent. And in light of the application process, talking about the same success, for example, the process was quite rigorous, and one needed to be persistent. For example, they would ask us to, they did ask us to submit like a 1,000-word essay. You know, you had to convince the panel and the people that were looking at the applications why you are the right person. And one of the key things they were looking at is the impact that you have actually made in your community. That's why community services was very important, and we have to always regard it as part of our success. So as we are talking about a success story, it shouldn't be about, oh, I have a master's degree, or I have a PhD. It has to be something more than that. It has to be a question of, what have you done with that degree? What have you done with that PhD? How many lives have you actually changed? How many people have you actually moved from point A to point C because of what you have actually done? And those are the things that we're looking at. Community service, which is something that I would encourage fellow young leaders in Africa to actually embrace, because it's something that, some of the things that we have actually noted here in USA, that it's actually very common, it's valued a lot. You have to give back to your society. You have to be able to do something that impacts on the community other than it being a personal benefit. And when you are in that position where you have changed somebody's life, or people can say you have moved them from a point of disadvantage, I think it would be fair to call that success. It doesn't have to be about personal benefits or what you have acquired as a person or as an individual, but what you have actually done for society and for community, for your country or for your region or whatever it is.
Now, Fauzia, you come from a country where some people will say that if you want to have unfettered access to an opportunity, you either have to have a very powerful aunt, a powerful uncle, or you have to be part of the patronage system. Certainly not merit, as it were. This is not me. This is stuff that I hear from a lot of people who write about Kenya, and I talk about it. When you learnt about this particular opportunity, did you sincerely feel that you had a chance, that you had a shot, if you could give it your all, that you could in fact become a Mandela Washington Fellow?
Yes, I did. First of all, it's because I believed in myself. I believed in what I did for my community. And as my friend said, that success is not somebody to come and award you, or success is not somebody who is in such and such positions. Success is doing something tangible that positively impacts our communities, our friends, our lives, our families. And I believe when I was applying, I was like, Fauzia, you're a leader. And being a leader, it doesn't mean that somebody sees you that you're a leader. No, you believe in yourself. You believe in what you have done, in your efforts. And when you are sincere with yourself and honest and true to what you're doing, then I think you have no barrier. So when the program came, I applied. And of course, I was happy as any other African youngster that it wasn't going through anybody, it wasn't going through any institution. We were directly applying to U.S. Department of State through IREX. So
hakuna kitu kidogo.
Certainly, hakuna kitu kidogo. So I said, and the essays, you had to have written those essays yourself. So because I could relate to it, because this is something you have done. It's not something that somebody else has done. It's you. And you are the one who knows what your pressing needs are back home. And I am a change maker today. And as a change maker, then I would write what I have gone through or my experiences are. And being a leader is leading with or without authorities. When you lead without any authority above you, and you know that this is what you are supposed to do, then that is a true leader. You don't need anybody to identify you as a leader because of you come from this family or because you're in that position. Interesting.
Nulu, you are smart, very knowledgeable, very confident for a lady of your age. What really inspired you to look beyond your stomach? There are a lot of people like you, someone will say, who are patriotic to their stomachs, the stomachs of their relatives, their family. But you seem, frankly, to be someone who looks beyond that. What inspired you to do that?
So what inspired me to do the work I do is, first of all, my own story, my background, where I come from. So briefly about me, I come from a family where my mother did not complete primary school. My father did not complete secondary school, but for some reason they believed in education, so they put us through school. But I think when I was about 15 years of age, my father could no longer afford my school fees, so it was a bit tough. So I think I stayed home for almost half a year without going to school. So when I went to school, so around that time some relatives suggested that, oh, let her get married. After all, she's at home.
At what age were you?
15.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So when some people suggested that, of course, my parents did not agree with that. I did not agree with that. So I went to my school and told them, okay, this is the issue at home. So when I told them, they allowed me to pay in installments. And I also worked to pay my school fees. And they also contributed part of the tuition. So that is how I finished high school. Now, before finishing high school, my mother passed away. So when she passed away, my whole hope of going through school was like, there was no hope. So what I did for my university is I had to do different odd jobs to pay for my university, and that is how I managed to complete my university. So after completing my university, I managed to get a job, of course, through volunteering, through working a lot, you know, through being proactive. I managed to get a job immediately. So what I did is, after getting the job, I just decided, after getting the job, I realized that many of my friends were not employed. So that is how I quit my job to start this organization, to inspire young girls, to tell them that it doesn't matter what you go through. If you can be confident, if you can believe in yourself, if you can work hard, you will be rewarded someday.
It doesn't matter where you come from.
Because
you can be
just something
validated.
to add on, because girls, usually when you go through a lot of challenges, you're vulnerable. You know, sometimes you can get pregnant because some man is promising some little money, or you can become HIV. So if no one is in your life to support you, you may go the wrong way. So that is why I do the work I do in Uganda.
Terrific, terrific. You're tuned into Straight Talk Africa. We'll have more of a discussion in a moment. But first, here is Mariama Jaro. Take it away, Mariama.
Well, thank you, Shaka, and I'm glad Nulu brought up the fact that when you're young, at a certain age, 15, people come and ask you for marriage, and sometimes it is the people that you're with. I totally remember when I was 14, I had people coming in to my house asking for marriage, and I would always be grateful to my parents, to my dad especially, and my mom as well, who always said, okay, well, let's have a family meeting. Let's sit down, let's decide. Mariama, would you like to get married? And when I said no, I want to stay in school, he said, okay, end of the discussion. So this is a very good point to bring up, and I'm glad we were able to talk about it. Well, still to come, we'll reveal some of the outstanding feedback we've received from you, our audience, through social media. But now, here is our letter of the week.
Yusuf Ibrahim from Nigeria writes,
The fellows' impact will be felt through the opportunities they will have to practice their learned leadership and management skills, which some Africans are lacking. If these skills are properly deposited in the hearts of African youth, our emerging leaders will have different views on leadership and management. We do have the resources, but leadership to manage them is lacking.
Like Voice of America on Facebook. Follow VOA on Twitter. Join VOA on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, join VOA.
This is Straight Talk Africa on the Voice of America. Call us now with your questions and comments. The number 202-619-3111. And the U.S. country code is 1. Call direct and we'll call you right back. Remember to keep your questions brief. Now back to Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you very much, Esther Gidhui, and welcome back to Straight Talk Africa, live from Washington. Once again, it's time to bring in my colleague and social media reporter, Mariama.
Well, thanks, Shaka. The Mandela Washington Fellowship is creating unique opportunities in Africa for fellows to utilize their new skills to lead organizations, communities, and countries. Let's remember that out of 50,000 applicants, and I'm going to repeat that, 50,000 applicants, only 500 were selected, and 3 of them, of course, with us today. President Obama is looking to double that number next year. So everyone, I would advise to get an early start on those applications, and you might become, who knows, one day, a Mandela Washington Fellow too. Well, meanwhile, here is our question of the week, which asks, with the knowledge acquired from their internship program, what impact will the Mandela Washington Fellows have upon returning to their homelands? Well, let's get right to it and begin with a comment from Aquino Musobe in Tanzania, who writes, the knowledge the returning Mandela Washington Fellows will let us dream big and move together for the future of Africa. Well, another comment comes from Muhammadina Jakana from Monrovia in Liberia, who says, the Mandela Fellows will help keep the African dreams and hope alive by strengthening the rule of law, also by creating a system of government that is inclusive and free of brutality and injustice. This system can then be passed down to the next generation. Well, Shaka, I remember President Obama telling the fellows something very similar, that it is their responsibility as well to hold their leaders accountable by actively participating in every facet of life, including, of course, strengthening the rule of law and certain institutions. They are the leaders of, they're not the leaders of tomorrow, and I have to always say that. They are the leaders of today. Shaka and the fellows.
Thank you. Chippy, how do you respond to that? How do you react to that?
Well, that's very true, that from going forward from now on, our impact has to be felt, and that there has to be, it has to be that significant to our society. Because the thing is, the U.S. government has invested so much in us. The best we can do is to transfer that investment into other people or other fellow young leaders in Africa. For example, as Mariama just said, 50,000 people applied for this program, right, and only 500 of us made it. In case of Malawi, 1,000 of us, and only 9 from 1,000 made it into the program, which means that essentially I'm representing 99 other young Malawian leaders.
You are 19?
9.
You are 9, just 9
from Malawi.
Right.
Out of 1,000 applications.
Very interesting, very interesting.
Exactly. And so it means that we're representing a larger number of our other young Malawian leaders. And I'll tell you, I believe that all these people that applied for this program, I believe that they are young leaders that have achieved so much in the society. They are achievers. They have done so much for Africa. They have done so much in their various industries. Each one of them could have equally qualified for the program, but because only a few could make it. So which means that our obligation, for those of us that made it, our obligation is to make sure that we are able to transfer the skills and the knowledge that we have gotten from here to them, and so that at the end we multiply the effect of the program and whatever we have gotten from here.
Chippy, does that make you feel that you are such an extraordinarily talented young lady?
I believe I am, but at the same time I believe that all of those that applied are also extraordinarily talented people, as well as all those who just couldn't make it to the program.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, Mariama, please share some more of our audience reaction.
Well, Shaka, before I move on, I just have to add that just covering the 3-day summit, for someone who lives in Washington and who is used to hearing how Africa is covered, and it's always, most of the time, just the bad side of Africa that we see on television. But when you are in that room with that many young people who are just the best, they really were. They're the best, the brightest. And as she said, I'm sure there are another 50,000 of them that are as equally as bright and as intelligent and as driven. It just warmed my heart. I mean, I could have stayed there forever looking at them, listening to their stories. It was humbling. So I have to just make sure that I say that today. Hopefully I won't cry. Anyways, we'll move on to another posting from George Desmond Iyo from Nigeria, who writes that the impact the fellows will have is neocolonialism. They will come back home and help colonize Africa for the greedy West. Well, that's an interesting point out there. And finally, Patrick Ssali from South Africa says, "It is my ardent hope that our comrades will use the skills learned during their fellowship to strengthen the hopes and dreams of the young people of South Africa and Africa as a whole." Congratulations. Well, Shaka, a very interesting take earlier with the comment on neocolonialism. And as you said, when there's positive, there's also negative. And we'll definitely be interested in hearing what the fellows have to say about that. But most importantly, big congrats from the viewer in South Africa.
Interesting. Fauzia, what about that issue of neocolonialism? In fact, I heard a friend of mine, a former friend of mine, a former Kenyan president, Daniel Arap Moi himself, having problems, frankly, with this type of program, wondering why America is attempting to choose leaders for Africa.
Thank you, Shaka, and it's always good this to be brought out, because I actually take it positively, and those are the things that we are supposed to battle around with. But honestly speaking, today, this time, this year 2014, if we have negative mentalities, negative thoughts, that is doing more harm than good to us. And if there is anything that this program has done to the Africans and the young Africans, is to make us more patriotic than ever, to realize our potential more this time more than ever.
Now, when you say patriotic, more patriotic than ever, to be what? To be patriotic Americans, or to be patriotic Kenyans and patriotic Africans?
Patriotic Kenyans, patriotic young African leaders who have nothing other than making the continent better, who are always dreaming and always at the forefront in bringing solutions to make our continent better. As far as neocolonialism is concerned, those are fears that we should shun today, because the 500 of us who are here, none can be, if I say, manipulated. Those people were full of energy. Those leaders were focused. Those leaders envisioned a disease-free Africa, an educated Africa, a politically strong and making decisions that are in the good for the common African child. So what we should do is right now is come together, collaborate, partner, work together. And unless Young African Leaders Initiative program might be putting more expectations and might be putting this impression that we are going to do miracles back home. But people should realize that we cannot do it alone. We have millions of young Africans who are out there. Without their support, we will not do it. We need their support. And for us for us to bring change, then change should start with every individual African, whether old, young, middle, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. It has to start with you. And these are the mentality that today, and that is what actually derailed so much in Africa, because we are quick in blaming, we are quick in pointing fingers, we don't take responsibility. You are part of the problem and you want to say that, oh, it's that country, it's that country. The corruption in our ministries, the bad roads, the lack of drugs in hospitals were not, and I will say, were not brought by outside people. We have our own ministries. We are sovereign countries. We manage our own affairs. So it's up to us to come and, for example, what is the strongest tool somebody who is a Kenyan has today? It's the vote. If you're eligible, you can vote good leadership. It's up to us to vote good leadership. It's up to us to vote bad leadership.
But someone might say it depends, in fact, whether that vote that you cast at the end of the day really counts.
The vote that we cast counts. And what I will not at any given time, Shaka, I'm sorry to say, will not take is that this is not going to happen and this is not going to happen. No. That negative mentality, it's high time we just get rid of it. Change can be realized. We can do it. I, you, anybody else can do it. It is changing the system. And if we don't change the system, then who else? If it's not us working towards the betterment of the African continent, then who else? So we stop blaming each other, we stop finger pointing, and we stop lamenting and playing the victim. That you are handicapped, you can't do anything. That you know there is corruption, so you cannot do anything. So at the end of the day, the citizens are mute spectators, and you normalize the bad governance that is happening. You normalize the bad attitudes that we have. No, unless we have a positive attitude, then I think even the Mandela Washington dream of bringing change is going to be really hard.
Fauci, I hope you have converted a lot of people that the glass, in fact, is half full rather than being half empty. Well, thanks, Mariama, for bringing us this week's audience reaction.
Well, a totally positive attitude, and I will vote for that. Let's give Yali a chance. Let's give Chance a chance, and we'll find out in a year or two what comes out of it. Well, that does it for our social media segment. Thanks to our guests for responding to our audience, and we hope you've thoroughly enjoyed your experience in the United States. It's definitely a fantastic opportunity, and we hope it serves you and all the fellows well. Well, a reminder that we appreciate all the feedback, whether it's in social media form or using other means to communicate to us. Please keep them coming. And if you are a new fan, just drop us a line at africatv@voanews.com. Once again, our email address is africatv@voanews.com. Or post your comment on our Facebook page. Just enter the keywords Straight Talk Africa. Be sure to visit us online at voaafrica.com, or you can simply join our YouTube channel. Just subscribe to VOA TV to Africa. Well, now let's take a look at what's on tap for next week's program. Next week on Straight Talk Africa, developing entrepreneurs and creating jobs on the continent. An in-depth discussion with some of Africa's brightest young business intellects. Well, that's next week, right here on Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome back. Today we are talking to three extraordinary young African fellows who are sharing their internship experiences in the United States as part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Our distinguished guests are Nulu Naluyombya, founder and executive director of Success Chapter from Uganda, Chipiliro Kansilanga, deputy editor online of Blantyre Newspapers Limited from Malawi, and Fauzia Abdikadir, founder and executive director of Northern Organization of Social Empowerment from Kenya. Ladies, once again, I have to say that I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have the opportunity to host the three of you for the first time, and hopefully not the last, on Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you, Shaka. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Well, I have to come to you again, Nulu, and tell you that the people who have actually been saying this is not only a moment for Africa, really, globally, but it is also a moment for your generation. That this is your moment, really, you have to seize it. That, in fact, Africa right now is in a position of what someone has characterized as a beautiful woman. And I'm so lucky that I can breathe the same air with three beautiful, incredibly gorgeous ladies. That Africa is such an incredibly gorgeous continent right now, with plenty of attention, whether it is the United States, whether it is the European Union, whether it is Beijing, whether it is Tokyo, whether it is the BRICS, that it is up to Africa, frankly, now to decide what it wants to do and go for it. Okay. You believe that?
Definitely. I think this is a great moment for us as Africa. First of all, we have the youngest population, like over 60% of young people, of our populations are young people. So first of all, we need to tap into that energy of the young people. We need to empower young people so that they can determine the future of Africa. But most importantly, saying Africa is being focused on, I think what Africa needs to do is take the opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity, make use of the opportunity. My worry is we might be very excited about this opportunity and it passes us by. You know, African countries need to sit and decide the future they want for their countries. You know, most African countries have celebrated over 50 years of independence. So I think we've learned enough from the mistakes we've done. So right now it's the time to say, okay, we've made some mistakes in the past. Let's correct the mistakes. Let's determine the future of Africa. But now that is not going to be done by someone else from other countries. We need to take part. We need to get into the kitchen and be part of cooking the next generation, cooking the next Africa. You know, we need to take part. We need to take personal responsibility. And each one of us, not just our governments, but individuals. You know, if I would specifically talk about my country, Uganda, when I'm back in Uganda, I kind of feel that we've given up. You know, we've given up on everything. So I think right now, each one of us in different African countries, we need to take personal responsibility. We need to take responsibility. The government has to play its part. The people have to play their part. The private sector has to play its part. One of the things I've admired here is the private sector is very much involved in the development of their country. And what I see back home is that the private sector is not really proactive in the development of the matters of the country. So right now, Africa, this is a great opportunity for us. Let's take full advantage of it. And let's maximize the opportunity because, I mean, such opportunities do not come every day. So if we just sleep and wait, that means we are going to lose the opportunity. So it's a great opportunity, but let's sit, strategize, and fix the next 50 years of Africa.
Chippy, what about you? Someone might come and say, wait a minute, this is simply, you know, talking the talk without necessarily, frankly, being in a position to walk that talk so that Africa can walk the walk.
Well, but I think that doesn't have to stop us from moving forward and looking to what we can then do. You know, learning from their past mistakes. If our leaders did made some decisions that were not good for our countries, for our nations, the best thing we can do is to actually learn from those mistakes and actually look forward and saying, how can we then do better? And I think that as Africa, we just really need to rebrand, you know, to rebrand and be positive about ourselves, be positive about the things that we have achieved. Because quite often we have focused on what has not worked for us as Africa. We focus on hunger, disease, and poverty. Yes, those things are there. But you see how, for example, the time that I've been here, a lot of people that I met here really don't know much about the positive side of Africa. So all they know is about those issues. They know Africa is associated with poverty. Africa is always looking for aid. Africa, there's disease. Africa is Ebola.
Is that
our
fault?
But
perhaps our fault we in the media? Or is
not
it also
in the media, but partly, yes, I will say that it could be our fault because we have not really taken time to create our own, to tell our own African story. We have let other people tell the African story on our behalf. We have not really focused on the enormous resources that Africa has and saying, you know what, this is going to work for us. This is actually working for us. Some of the 10 best growing economies in the world are from Africa.
Yeah, but someone might tell you that, that could very well be a reflection of creative accounting, that in fact we are looking at a facade, an illusion. Because if that were to be true, how come those statistics are not reflected in people's stomachs? How come those statistics are not reflected in people being employed?
Well, but at the same time, we also have to look at what has worked. If you look at how many companies and organizations, for example, or even countries are coming to Africa wanting to invest, wanting partnership, that will tell you something, that we actually want to move forward. That yes, those challenges are there, but we can actually do something about it. Remember how President Obama announced the $30 billion investment. This was not aid for the first time, not aid, $30 billion in investment into Africa. So it has to be like we're moving forward to a point of partnership. It's no longer about give us because we don't have and we need that money, but it's about, okay, let's see how we can work together. Let's see what you provide so that we also provide. Let's meet at some middle point and see how we can work things out.
Let's look at a newly rebranded Chippy landing back in Blantyre.
Yes.
What are you going to find? Are you going to be a different person?
I think so. I think so. I already am different right now. I think that this program has had such an enormous effect on and impact on my life, even in terms of my professional life. I think that it has really turned around everything for me. Firstly, even just talking about the internship that I'm undertaking right now, for example, I have always worked for newspapers and magazines, so I've been pretty much like in the print media. But now with VOA, I'm focusing more on radio and TV. And so those are new skills that I'm actually getting, and obviously I'm going to focus on a different aspect of the profession.
Very good. I understand that we have to go to the lifeline of the show, which are the telephone callers, that in fact there is a caller from Uganda. Good evening, you're most welcome to Straight Talk Africa. A caller from Uganda? I'm afraid I don't hear anything, and I really... What about a caller from Tanzania? I don't even have the name. I'm afraid that it doesn't look like we are technically getting it, and therefore we come back to the studio. Let me come to you, Fauci. When you look at Kenya, your leaders have been talking about looking towards the east. Because obviously their traditional relationship has been with the United States, with Europe, and what have you. What does that really mean? Because there are some critics who are saying, look here, when somebody is saying they're looking east, they're not really looking east. In fact, it is China, it is India, it is Japan coming to Africa. They are the ones coming with the tools. What does that mean?
Shaka, I don't think our relationship with the United States has been affected, and we have had a very good relationship so far, and we hope to have maintain the same relationship even further. But I think naturally this is business, and for business there is something called diversification, and you have to diversify your investments and even diversify when it comes to partnership. And they are coming with the East, like as you said, they are coming to us, and I think so far we haven't had like very sour relationships with either of them. And as the government of Kenya, we hope to work with anybody and everybody from the rest of the world as long as it has positive impact on the citizens.
But what is it really that has changed? With colonialism, the Europeans were looking for resources from Africa. Is there anything that has changed in the last 50 years?
Shaka, so much has changed in the last 50 years. And as my colleague said, today people are looking at us as partners. That we are no longer,
partners.
Yes, we are no longer being looked like beggars and problem-oriented, continent. And as partners, somebody sees when you have economical muscles, social muscles, political muscles, that you can actually strike a deal, that you can actually do business with another country. And that is the good news for Africa. And what we are seeing, where we are seeing the gap is policy. The policies that are not trickling down to the grassroots level. Policies that are very good as far as the writings and the theory part of it are concerned. And that is where we come in. Where we come in is to ensure that the policies that are being made, whether it is economically or, it's an economical or a political policy, they actually have a positive impact on the common man. And advocating for policy, again, is where we are going wrong. Because when we want to advocate for policy, it turns to be very violent, it turns to be disrespecting, but we can actually influence these policies on a very, very healthy, or in a very healthy discussion whereby there is a common understanding. There is, you do your homework, you come up with research, and you are like, this is what is happening, and this is what we are supposed to do, and convince the public, convince the private sector, convince CSOs and NGOs and all the stakeholders in the society, including the government. So where we are actually seeing the gap is this policy is not going down. If it's an education policy, why has it not worked up to today? Why do we still have 1 million+ children in Kenya not going to school? Yet we have free primary education, yet the tuition of secondary school tuitions have been abolished. So there are other underlying issues that are supposed to be taken care of.
But if you talk about that type of free primary education or free secondary school education, do you in fact find the children of the elite in those schools? Do you even find the children of the elite in your own local universities? They go to South Africa, they go to Australia, they go to Europe, they come to North America. Why?
But you see, Shaka, we have a bunch of social issues that we have today. I will not tell you that today the rich people, they go to the free primary, they take advantage of the free primary education, or they go to the local school in my village. But then I will not dwell on that. I will dwell on what can I change in that system.
I hear you.
What can I do to make that system better? What can I do to make sure that every child goes to school? That is where my focus will be.
I hear you. You know, all countries are supposed to have vital national security interests. The only countries where you have problems with that concept are found in Africa, where some people will tell you, there you have personal, national security interests. And you hear the rhetoric of win-win situation, partnership, exchange program. But in fact, one-way track. When I was at the University of California in the 80s, we had exchange program with a lot of African countries, but it was one-way track. We have to go beyond that, and it is your moment. Ladies, your generation, these are the challenges for you. Thank you so much. On that note, thanks to our distinguished guest, Nulu Naluyombya, founder and executive director of Success Chapter from Uganda, Chipiriro Kansilanga, deputy editor online of Blantyre Newspapers Limited from Malawi, and Fauci Abdikadir, founder and executive director of Northern Organization of Social Empowerment from Kenya. Thanks to affiliate stations, along with our viewers and listeners, we thank you for tuning in. For many of our Voice of America radio affiliates, Learning English is coming up next. And tomorrow morning, it's Daybreak Africa with James Bate. On behalf of the Voice of America, thanks for tuning into Straight Talk Africa. In the meantime, get better, not bitter, please. And remember to keep the African hopes alive.